Welcome to The Journey of a Lifetime, a show where I, your beloved host, Erez Davids, interview different Jewish immigrants about their experiences immigrating to the Lower East Side of Manhattan from the years of 1897 to 1927. Tonight, we have a really great show. Our first guest tonight is Abe Kahan. Abe, tell us a little about yourself.
I was born in 1860 in Lithuania and moved to the Lower East Side in New York in 1882. Life as an immigrant was difficult for me because I arrived in America being very poor and unfamiliar to American culture. I am a socialist and editor of the Jewish Daily Forward, a Yiddish newspaper.
So, Abe, tell us a little about the Jewish Daily Forward.
Well, the Jewish Daily Forward is made in the Forward building. This building serves as the newspaper's company and was built in 1911 on East Broadway. The Jewish Daily Forward is a popular and successful Jewish newspaper that focuses mostly on Eastern European immigrant news and important news about Jews.
Oh, that is very interesting. How would you say that the Jewish Daily Forward has contributed to Jewish immigrant life in the Lower East Side?
Good question. Well, you see, many immigrants arrive to America feeling lost from American culture and just not fitting in with the community. Many people also want to know what is going on with their country's news, and that is when the Jewish Daily Forward comes in. We allow Jewish immigrants to learn about American culture as well as keep up with news from all around the world.
Nice job, Abe. So, tell us more about assimilation in the Lower East Side.
First off, many Jews began to arrive in the Lower East Side during the late 19th century and early 20th century. As you might have imagined, assimilation was a hard task for Jews coming from different countries because many of them were poor, did not speak English, and had no idea what American culture was about.
Okay, so what organizations or programs do you know about that might have eased in immigrant life?
The Educational Alliance was a very important and prosperous organization for new Jewish immigrants as well as other immigrants arriving to the Lower East Side. The Educational Alliance was built in 1889 and aimed to help mainly Jewish immigrants, but also non-Jewish immigrants, to settle and assimilate in the New World. This organization helped influence many individuals to become part of American culture.
Excellent. Well, it looks like you've given us some great examples. But do you have any more? How about some stores or delis that served a role in assimilation of Jewish immigrants? Do you have anything else on that?
First off is Katz Deli. Katz Deli was founded by a Russian immigrant in 1888. Katz Delicatessen was one of the first kosher delis in the Lower East Side. This deli served as a part of assimilation that Jewish immigrants created because it branded the beginning of Jewish and kosher food in the Lower East Side. Katz Delicatessen is famous for bringing the old world traditions of Jewish foods and flavors to the new world. Currently, I believe that Katz Deli serves foods such as salami, pastrami, corned beef, and many other foods with distinctive flavors that remind people of the old world.
Abe, thank you. You did an
welcome,
excellent
sir.
job. Now, our second guest today is going to enlighten us with his knowledge and experiences of his religious life in the Lower East Side, as well as important aspects of his previous life in Eastern Europe. Here is Mort Goldman Steinberg Silverbaum Steen Ben Yosef.
You go!
Yeah!
Pleasure to have you today, Mort.
Pleasure's all mine, Erez.
So, Mort, can you tell us a little about yourself?
So I was born in 1873 in Russia. I moved to the Lower East Side in 1885.
So, how was life growing up in Russia? Why'd you guys leave?
Well, growing up in Russia was pretty tough. We left for lack of freedom of religion. We had heard of a place called America, where many Jews had gone already, and they said it was very religiously tolerant. It sounded unbelievable, a place where we could go and practice Judaism in peace.
Why didn't you leave right away?
We tried to, but the Russians wouldn't let us. They were very unreasonable. They wouldn't even let us speak Yiddish. We had to speak, practice, and teach and learn Judaism in a private area. And because of that, the first thing we did when we got to America was renew the Yiddish culture under the freedom. But back to the question, we did leave, but as soon as it was safe to.
So after arriving in New York, why did you choose the Lower East Side?
See, my father didn't know that many people, and we were a very poor family. So we wanted to go to an area where we could earn some money, maybe start a business, and practice our Judaism with other Jews.
Nice. So how was your life when you arrived? Was it anything like you had expected?
Well, as you can expect, there are some good and there are some bad. Which one do you want to hear first?
Let's hear good.
One very good thing was the new religious freedom in the public Jewish communities, especially the synagogues. Congregation Chaim Sofer and the Stanton Shul, St. Shul, were all great shuls. But one of the first and the most influential synagogues was the Eldridge Street Synagogue. The Eldridge Street Synagogue was a remarkable synagogue in the Lower East Side because it was the first synagogue built by the Eastern Europeans in the U.S. It was built in 1886.
What else can you tell me about the Eldridge Street Synagogue?
The Eldridge Street Synagogue is a 6-story tall synagogue. It is breathtaking because the founders of the synagogue wanted to express their freedom in the New World in an amazing way. The Eldridge Street Synagogue was a symbol of the new start to Judaism in the New World at the Lower East Side.
Okay, so what's so bad about that?
Well, one of the many things that was difficult for Jewish immigrants was adapting to American culture. It was difficult due to the traditions of the Old World, such as clothing, religious language, Yiddish. However, the following Jewish generation prospered in the Lower East Side because their parents pushed them to learn English and assimilate to Jewish culture.
Thank you so much, Mr. Goldman, Steinberg, Silverbaum, Steen, Ben Yosef.
Thank you for letting me share my story.
Our next guest tonight has come all the way from Florida to tell us his story. Please welcome Albert Ergen.
You go, Al!
Sir. How are you?
It's great to be on the show. Thank you so much for having me on the show. I'm so excited.
We were glad to have you. Well, let's jump into it, shall we?
We shall.
All right. Well, Albert, tell us a little about yourself.
Well, I was born in Monastir, Macedonia in 1911, and then my dad moved to America, fleeing the anti-Semitic threats he would receive almost every day. When I was 7, in 1918, I moved to America with my mother, and we joined my father on Orchard Street. I only attended school up to 8th grade, and then became a presser for a clothing factory. When I was about 17, I became a traveling salesman, selling ties, shirts, and other small articles of clothing.
Tell us a little about the home lives and the conditions of the tenements.
Living conditions were very poor. When new immigrants arrived to America, they were poor and could not afford a nice and clean apartment, so they mostly lived in tenements. Tenements were apartments that were usually cramped and dirty. Disease was rampant, clean water was hard to find, and privacy was unheard of. Several families lived in one tenement and were crowded in rooms together. There weren't any toilets inside until 1905. No light besides natural light could be seen until around 1905 either. And the only way one could access gas for fire was by paying through a meter in the kitchen.
That sounds horrible.
Yeah, but electricity was added in 1918, which did make things a little bit easier. Water was also a major problem for tenement buildings. Families had to get water from an outdoor pump, which was usually located in the backyard of the building, next to the bathrooms. But in 1895, tenements began to add water access to every apartment. Only cold water was provided until gas was added to tenements in 1905, along with coal stoves.
So living conditions in these tenement buildings were so tough. Why not stay in Eastern Europe and continue practicing in private?
Because although life in the Lower East Side was frightening, dirty, and cramped, it was better than our lives in anti-Semitic Russia and Eastern Europe. Anything was better than that. They did not tolerate our religion and caused us to live in constant fear and made us hide. However, the Jews flourished in the Lower East Side, and without the suppression from the Russians, there was a new boom in Yiddish and Jewish culture.
Well, that's wonderful. But we're out of time. It was great talking to you.
Thank you for having me. It's been quite a pleasure.
Well, that was Albert Ergis. And this has been The Journey of a Lifetime. I'm Abe.
I'm Mort.
And I'm Albert.
And I'm Sarah!
And this is our
Logan's History Project.
Yeah.